And one of you will say slower, clear, like constantly if necessary. Right? Okay.
Twice.
And go slower in analytics. Right?
What?
Slower in analytics. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I like to be able to flow.
All right. If you want to label your flows, it's critique, topicality, case. Okay. All right.
Hang on. Yeah, I have a piece of paper in front of me. You're good to go.
The concept of autonomy requires an embodied metaphor, but this metaphor abstracts individual corporealities and generates certain image is the perfectly autonomous body of that person with disabilities and able to access that solely and non-concepts such as autonomy are understood through the embodied metaphor and lines of work presented case for the body here something without people that understand certain words to trace accepted abstractions primarily mediate through representation propositions. People use aspects of the phenomenal experience of structure, abstract concepts associated with experimental elements are reduced with parts of basic understanding of them and understanding transgender differences in medical issue leads to legislative apathy, reinforces ableist no sensitivity is dysfunctional, allows oppression against transgender people to continue unhindered than Strigger. And third to the inclusion of the GID medicalizes them treats them as disease rather than just different the current allows transgender gender typically to be little to having mental disorder categorized transgender people's mentally short leaves them never land results to trans people have an exemption for Americans with disabilities and their medical care are not covered by most insurance. She continues that legislative the fact that transgender counts as mental disorder to trans people for identity-based legislation. Trans people are not protected housing and employment, and their murders are not hate crimes. Transgender Americans have seen to be safe protected, but obviously should be provided help. Keep GID marks all trans people as mentally disordered, no matter how well they are functioning. Transgender people are treated the unconscious so prove otherwise the opposite of human. And ableism is a tactic of oppression that permeates all forms of discrimination. Regulation based on normative biological standards justifies every form of discrimination. This is not to say that issues such as class or secondary, but rather that any movement should include a deconstruction of able normativity that's deceivers and non-impression always focused on how the body appears justified by the attribution natural and inferiority depends on the biological inferiorities, disabilities shows the mastery of human disqualification, physical and that's opposite body or certain constructions disqualifying defies power of identity discrimination represents some ways to discriminate race disqualifies the basis of race, sex, and class of class and gender, not on the basis of socio-economic experience like inferior technological status, ableism disqualifies the basis of mental and physical difference for repressing signs of the competence, weakness, or inferiority's nature are alternatives to reject the affirmative approach to politics to favor just modernism. Identity politics are inevitably shrouded in attachments, essentialism, only new to spotter understanding of identity, self-social statement that creates racism, sexism, classism, and enables them interpretation of classes, spotters, through a rival of the white normative subject. That's Davis in 13. Rather than ignoring the single nature of disability, which amplify that quality disability creates a disparity is principally characterized the identity group life, so exclusivity disability presents with the malleable of the human body, identity disparity. The rest of the difference is what we all have in common. The identity is not fixed, the malleable dependence is the rule of form follows dysfunction. Active localization identity, consider new ethics, the body care, the body how, regardless of the existence, gives you a side of care about the body. We develop disparity discourse, like with the males, with disabilities are also in prison treatment with women, female babies, often sexually familiar, and often with mechanisms of stable, but all groups are selected for disabled by larger sets of people to provide the broad way of understanding conservative system repression. Politics have been record of politics, they cool the dominant white. Normal subject to spotters, the prejudice created a category based on the partial and partially complete subject to the safety and autonomy and dependence, and interpretance often is seen as rooted for texture created with society's large administrative of the spotters, substantively, outtake modern system sexist rule to disguise the hegemonic normacy, imperative rule, and normacy is the fantasy of modern vision, loss for clever, or concrete action, spotters, and for commonality, bodies within the notion universe. We are all disabled by just impression, verifies we are all not sharing the fantasy, the culture, sex, and racism is the perfection of the body. Next up. Interpretation medical is defined as Merriam-Webster as relating to the treatment of diseases and injuries violation. Gender treatments are not related to diseases or injuries. Transgender is defined as an identity that's a conal. Transgender is a term that includes people whose gender identity or self-expression does not conform to the sex or sign of birth. Transgender is an expression, experience the expression of the self-standard. First common use by definition is first Merriam-Webster first decision regarding the treatments of adolescents that always A. Dictionaries control common use. Every person has access to whereas certain articles require subscriptions having different interpretations. B. Dictionaries only purposes to define the terms most commonly used way avoids lack of context. Alphabet. Dictionaries been C. For definitions commonly used as other definitions are outdated or allowed to utilize context. Fairness, round practice, are many of terms of resolution can be defined independent of common use also jurisdiction, whereas the resolution is defined with the regular. Each of the defined words is independently sufficient to confirm the resolution seconds limits. There are interpreted limits by hermetic and consultation with physicians, anything involving medicine, they plan smoking, tattoos, warms, choice, prep, impacts, A, key engagement, next, can't prepare, and engage after. There are so many, but companies only ask prepare, making, debate, one-sided discussion, engage with key, didn't pass stronger development, otherwise, bitches, talk, ask one another, don't develop, critical things, skills, be the ask, you have to research there, one, have to split out the case, second, after right, after, will be subject to case, specific, generic, and next, will, all those after the money, research, blocks, after research, after he, for goes on, the French explains research, be created and fit on France reason I've always been a period on the case and a large cherry pick medical choices that scientific generic cyber so generic link this out shift unique is always round loss even from becomes a little hard to make negative impossible see research and some of this next after research when you ask them they'll radical case next to just reach generic every round keep quality eventually since we'll have the same report of debates every round and none of the quality since we don't actually discuss the specifics of the FD topical insurance and advice the gap we can claim for the show there or the topical insurance the most severe discuss the medical choice of the abstract of the context of jurisdiction. Dan? Fairness is voted because Spade is competitive active without fair playing field. The judges no way to determine the better part of the Spade with value with round vote on education. Spade is valuable for education benefits. We receive the active solicitation to the court of education core value vote on jurisdiction and outside the judge's jurisdiction to vote on non-topic actions. The alpha then from the top that means you negative when a counter interprets the correct interpret the top with the offense or interprets not beneficial. That also means you waste theory and any other theory impact drop the beer one drop the argument is the equivalent of severances allows shift to drift debate whatever that's independent about any severance screws by allowing the new offense and whatever the new advocacy making all treating offense irrelevant but incentivized has to be non-topical until the whatever destroying topic education. 2 is the ultimate punishment since the greatest sentences when dropping them is the only way to ensure abuse practice history still Jesus sense spread abuses time sector in case it isn't found us to drop the argument never solves competing interpretations. 1 reasonably makes no sense that you cannot be reasonably topical you are 2 reasonably arbitrary we don't know 1 is reasonable we invite a judge and venture random unjustified threshold and 3 only competing interpretation prevents future abuse practice by holding debaters to consistent rules and sentence fighting not on a case by case basis meaning that the best way to just real abuse is competing interpretations crossify your policy making office to this argument because you are trying to say which one is the best policy which means the policy competing interpretation which is the best nor for debate which means that offensively on the theory debate no RBIs T no one T is already enough meaning that the office topic doesn't mean you should automatically with that model debate with logically create out wins to the average Shania Hunt it's completely reciprocal T since the topic first next defend resource to defend a shift away from autonomous medical choices so I bet my T burden for example the neck has to be competitive with you when you see which means your burden is to be topical my burden is to compete which means that's completely reciprocal to forces theory RBIs force every theory creates with our substances both debates generate the opposite of the is only not only split something but also destroy something education by 4 subject 3 shows theory RBIs destroys to make checking basis here abuse of interest with probable other abuse of practice based theory the preface already skewed in favor of cheaters so it's all spot to win. Skip the diss case. Starting on the RBI interview. You say that you were RBI. First of all, overall view on all of your arguments. You only have one argument, specifically T per fear. T reasons for the RBI. First, your first argument is because sometimes T makes it impossible to win on both theory and substance. We both speak for 13 minutes, but also you get 7 minutes of the one AC, the one area and the 2 areas to be able to talk about whatever you want, which means that you also get the last 8 which check back. First time, then your B arguments that next axis T grab means the neck has one word to balance it off means one as well. That's not true. Extending cross by the argument about how the neck has to be competitive with the affirmative, which means that if we just read just as a dot link to the affirmative, that would be topical. We're not saying you can't read a plan, we're saying it has to be topical, but also you see argument is that the initial competing services who can set the most fair for education norm for debate. We'll concede that corresponds by that to competing interpretations. Also, you say if you went off into chief as a furious appears to you that your norm is preferable. No, that just means you meet your norm, not that your norm is a reason actively for me to lose without that doesn't make any sense. But also, no, you then that's fine. Also, then on the policy stuff. First, you say role playing, but for this is the Curry and the role playing arguments. You say first of all is the entrenchment. Just that all policies that are centered in ableist discourse or notion will always lead to an ableist implementation. 2 is fiat is illusory. Nothing actually happens when you sign your ballot. You say that is a proactive knowledge because we actually learn to make policy debate arguments. But this links back to discourse because you said that form of discourse is something knowledgeable, which would imply that discourse is important. 3rd is the vampirism. Just that politics debates are always going to be necessary because if you have politics debates about extinction, things like people dying in Russia makes us happy because then we can have politics. And 4th is outsourcing our agency. We hide behind the government instead of talking about how we should reorient ourselves towards each other. The 5th argument is that the state is always unable against the disabled body.
Okay, everyone ready? Which comes first here, okay?
So the critique is framing under the 1AC interpretation, whereas the topicality argument is something that says that it should frame substance.
Which comes first? If I turn T, does that come before K? If I turn K, does that come before T?
T frames the right.
So does T come first?
I mean, you have.
Just say you don't take a stance. Just be reasonable.
Okay, I don't take a stance.
You don't take a stance. Perfect. That was 30 seconds. All right. Now let's move on. Status of the K alternative.
Unconditional.
Unconditional.
Mm-hmm.
All right, but I don't get an RBI on T.
You don't.
Okay.
Doesn't make sense.
Do you get an RBI on normal theory?
I do not make arguments for that in the 1A, and I do not make arguments for that in the 1C.
Yeah. Can you make those arguments in the 2?
If you read theory and you say
so
no to an RBI,
you're allowed to make arguments while you get an RBI on theory, but I'm not allowed to get an RBI on T.
It's not that you're not allowed to; it's that you have to win that you can. It's a debate. This isn't just me being like, oh, yo, Jonas, can you give me?
The second argument is that it forces theory. RBIs force every theory debate to ignore substance. This would seem to be general. RBIs bad.
Okay, sure, that's
all right. You don't get an RBI. Cool.
I made a reason why I don't get an RBI. Sure.
All right, let's stop dancing around everything. What was the? What's the alt?
The alternative?
Yep.
The alternative text specifically was, I believe, to reject the affirmative. Yeah, we should reject the affirmative's approach to politics to favor dismodernism. Identity. Yeah.
Okay. What's dismodernism?
Dismodernism, sure. So dismodernism defends the social model versus the medical model. So dismodernism is the idea that we break down social categories. So yeah, it's a defense of breaking down social categories.
So we have to break down social categories.
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean?
So stop thinking of things as in male and female,
so
trans.
shift.
It's not a mindset
You
shift.
say we stop thinking about things in certain ways.
No.
Fiat a mindset.
I don't fiat a mindset shift. I advocate that we should change our politics in order to be like non-categorized.
So we should change our politics. How do we do that?
How do we do that?
Yeah.
Sure. So we can take things like the affirmative, change them, and then
How do we do that? What do we change it to?
Sure. There's going to be a sick 2-hour overview that explains this. But specifically in terms of the app, what we would say is that conceptions of autonomy is what we criticize. So we need to remove autonomy from our discourse. Because
How do we do that? How do we remove autonomy from our discourse?
We stop using autonomy.
So we just don't use the word autonomy. Is that
I'm not fiating that we stop using it. I'm saying we should stop using it.
Okay,
That's
so
what
the word
concept-
autonomy is the link.
Yeah. Yes, autonomy.
Okay.
Autonomous conceptions are bad.
So the word autonomy is bad.
It's not just the word autonomy, right? Like the word autonomy has negative notions, but there is also a link to the affirmative and specifies.
What is the specific link to the affirmative?
Sure. So this is a link to how the affirmative is a defensive medical model because the resolution questions us about making medical decisions, and the 1AC's interpretation.
Is this a pick or not?
What do you mean by?
Is this a floating pick or not? Will you defend this as just a K or a pick?
I'm sorry. What do you mean?
All right, I'll start. Ready? I'm asking you, is this a K or is this a pick?
It's
You know what a pick is, Jonas. You read a floating pick like 2 rounds ago. Is this a K or is this a pick?
I will not go for the critique. I will not go for
Just
floating.
answer one damn question.
I
Is
will-
it a K or is it a pick?
I will not go for the critique as a floating pick in the 2-hour. That's a promise.
So is it just a K then?
Correct.
I love you. Thank you. Finally. Cool. All right. Go. Why are terms co-opted as modernism?
Sure. So the argument here is that it's essentially it's semi a severance argument that your representations in the 1AC are like you are severing out of them because you are just saying like right it is the white able body has always said we can fix things right because people like disability abolitionists would say that like we need to create access for the disabled and they create bathrooms for people with disabilities. But then what happens is there are articles about how those bathrooms are actually inaccessible to people with disabilities. There was a woman who wrote an article about how on her entire college campus there was only one bathroom that she could actually use, regardless of them making 60 bathrooms that were for people with disabilities. So the 1AC's attempt to try to say the permutation solves is just that notion that we, as the able body, can solve for disabilities.
So then why are you allowed to say my alternative solves?
It's not that, it's saying that we have to change the starting point, right? That is what the criticism defends. Instead of assuming things like transgender and all these different social categories, we have to break those down mentally, at least in our politics and our discourse, and then use that in order to grasp a better knowledge of the world.
What are the arguments on
On Connolly?
Yes, I'll let you go through each one.
Connolly, are you talking about like state action being good? Sure. So I kind of like grouped all of your like policymaking, concrete change stuff, if that's fine. So there are 5 arguments.
Fine, we continue. Yeah, I'm just messing with you. Just keep going.
It's okay. The first argument was entrenchment. If the original policy or notion was tainted in ableism, then its implementation and consequences will be ableist and have problems for people with disabilities. The second argument was that fiat is illusory, meaning that like fiat like is not something like when the judge signs their ballot for you, nothing happens. Like we're just like you like get a bigger trophy and like we all go home, right? And you can say that applies to me too, but like our argument is that like instead of like focusing on like post-fiat stuff, we should focus on like our notions. Third argument is a vampirism disadvantage to policymaking. Vampirism is the idea that we find pleasure in policymaking and the pain of others. When millions of people die, when thousands of people die in wars in other countries, we get excited because now we have uniqueness for our politics disadvantages. Whether if we focus merely on discourse, then we find out how to reform ourselves as individual subjects rather than focus on pain and suffering. The fourth argument was an outsourcing or agency disadvantage, which is that if we role play as the government and have policy action and concrete change, then we outsource our agency. So we act as the government instead of acting as ourselves, right? Me and you do not become Barack Obama or the US Congress or the judicial court system. When we enter this room, we are still Sean McCormick and Jonas LeBarillec, affirming and negating the resolution. So a policymaking approach is negative and harmful for our personal representations. And then the fifth argument is that the government is always inherently violent against against the disabled body, which is true from the uniqueness of both the ableism critique and the 1AC, because you say that the state is currently violent. So we should stop role-playing as the state and thinking of what the state should do. Stop role-playing as the KKK, but instead think of what we should do and reform our discourse. Seconds remaining. I'll flash you about 3. Sorry, I have the flash drive. Woo! What was that? It's a lot. I didn't know if you were about to. What's the order? ACK. Okay. Oh, wait, sorry. New off ACK, my bad. All right. Is it a theory shot? It might be.
Oh, God.
Events when I was younger.
Hold on, guys. Yeah. What is Till next time. So I'm talking to I'm going to talk to Steve about the cut in half. Okay.
There you go.
See y'all. Alright, later DJ.
Wait. 8? Yo, Liz, this one's 8.
Someone want to close the door? Alright. So you said new off, and then the case, and then the K, right?
Yeah.
Alright.
Okay.
Alright. Oh, I'm gonna enlarge this text. Straight. Alright.
Are you ready?
Alright.
Alright, new off, AC. Okay. Sweet. So we're ready? Alright. We're gonna, when we read the new off, it's gonna reference the T stuff, specifically the voter section. So you might wanna have that ready. I don't know. It's up to you. Go for it. Good? Cool.
A is the interpretation of the negative reads multiple voting issues in the one, and then the negative must weigh between them in the one and Z, or explicitly delineate which periodic impact comes first, fact and CX. These violation I and CX, and they didn't specify which comes first, i.e. C or T or K. C or T first strategy. These arguments are functionally a priori because they're two completely independent links. The highest level functions the opportunity cost to one another. Offense on theory is no interaction with offense case, so I can't limit the arguments I make to the one arguments both layers. They can kick my best response and either pick which layer I undercover on, which is an independent reason to drop the neg and functions prior to K, and theories that they're delegitimizing critical arguments which infinitely perpetuates oppression, unfair, and uneducational practices. Also saying I can waste nonsense. The 6-man, 2-man R means they can collapse to whatever they're head on for both, and it's always their preferable and keeping interest to way for me so the interaction starts earlier. Strategy is key to fairness because I can't run without a reasonable understanding of how to make an impact argument. Strategy is also an independent voter that is a gateway issue of evaluation, fairness, and education. They take the bait out of my hands, which forces you to vote for the better cheater, not who's more fair educational. Also, don't let me make a jurisdiction order weighing argument in the next speech because I couldn't engage in the T-show in the first place because you would have just gotten out of my arguments with weighing arguments. Also, jurisdiction begs the question of what is more fair or educational norm for the debate. So jurisdiction is not an independent voter in and of itself because it links from education and fairness. Also, meta theory precludes T because A affirms the evaluation of T since it indicates that T debate is skewed. B, abusive use of T are the worst form of abuse since T is a game over issue. C, abusive use of T is worse because it corrupts the use of theory as a check on abuse, makes it obvious as a tool of strategy, which forces the debate away from substance. Now, on AC. Extend green, educational challenge, transgender oppression, extend green 2, discussing non-transgender oppression, turns their case in such oppressive ways, oppressive practices, outweighs because there's no possibility of solvency if they're functioning through a flawed epistemology. This means this, ableism arguments they makes the last feature inherently denied 1% strength of green 2 means that first we need to talk about transgender issues, and at best is only tangentially linking them with decay impacts. But extend Rogers that solve for oppressive material contingency comes first because A, abstract K alternatives fail. They need to provide a concrete way of defining material change, not just mind chips having some minute effects of material conditions, mean that they don't have an alternative method to the opposite. The only one with risk of offense will roll about. It's going to be very damning because the framing issue is going to take out the links of his alternative, means the only app's going to be the one with risk of solvency, but we'll get to that when we go through extensions. Then Connolly all must be state policy. Next, and the C part of the Connolly analytic engagement state policy is not endorsed the state norms, but the app can be utilized with other ideologies. It's going to be very damning because it means that I'm not endorsing the state conception of autonomy as provided under the K link. The last feature is incredibly vague. What specifically part of the app links into the K. He said maybe it's discourse, maybe it's policy, but he's engaging the status quo of autonomy, and I'm saying I'm shift away from that when I shift away from the norm of the state. Then you extend Turner. Governments give transgender youth and possibility the right to puberty blockers. Then extend the B and let them Turner. No links for your K. The plans to shift in the current state and medical community values. This is going to be extremely damning because he's saying the current conception of autonomy is inherently flawed. There are two different parts of the app where I point out that I do not defend status quo conceptions of autonomy as they're applied to individual groups, i.e. transgender groups. Then extend the C and let them Turner. Shows plans and preconditions to solve for any transgender oppression. The only way the state can recognize transgender autonomy. He says he functions under my roadmap, but he's dropping a precondition argument that before we can have any solvency for transgender oppression, we first have to function through the app. They extend the D and let the decision actually extend Turner 2. Without medical autonomy, transgender teens are forced in sex work might perform self-genital mutilation. They extend the A impact outweighs negative offense on magnitude. Giving medical autonomy with rape, HIV, genital mutilation, and murder. It's going to be very damning around because it means that I'm the only one doing weighing between the K harms and the Av harms, i.e. specifically that I'm going to outweigh because I'm giving I outweigh on magnitude. Cole can see it. Then you extend Carol in the solvency. Access to hormone treatment, soft transgender oppression. Extend the analytic function part and argument they halt any possible solution by denying the existence of human nature. This means because it's not a pick, he's denying the existence of transgender nature. This is Ruse's solvency under the alternative because he's not even recognizing transgender people are existent. Means he's not going to function through a flawed epistemology. Then you can extend Curry. We need a unit of critique and state policy specifically in the base space to actually provide for productive discourse critique. His arguments are first, it's going to re-entrench implementation of that idea, but one is Rep's argument that'll warrant there's a chance that you function through flawed epistemology without the state policy. The second is the loose theory. It's still about which discourse is more educational. And Curry's saying the most educational discourse one that's a unit of the state policy. Then the vampire DA one that K links his discourse specifically about pain of the able-bodied. Second, it's not unique to policy actors. The fourth is that we outsource our arguments to the state, but one, we become better policy, but it's still good to have solvency under a policy-making paradigm. And then the fifth argument is that the government is violating people. I say I shift away from the current I shift away from the current argument. Also, allow me to make new rules about weighing with T-Way if he makes them soon. Alright. I have 4 minutes and 45 seconds, starting now. Alright. So what was your argument against the outsourcing your agency DA? It was short, so can you have an explanation? Which one? The outsourcing your agency, the fourth one. What did you say? I said, you're assuming that we're trying to become policymakers, but the Curry analysis is not specific to becoming policymakers. Neither is the Roger analysis. It's just that we need to deal with tangible material impacts. So at best, it's only response to policy. Okay, that's fine.
I ate my damn sandwich.
What was it?
Slim 5.
I have another one.
So what did you read on the degree?
to Slim 5. Just saying.
Definitely not Slim.
Here, I have some socks. You want it to be like this? Yeah, for extensions.
No, that's fine.
Oh, okay. Whatever.
Is that it?
No. Oh, well, further down I also didn't read a lot of stuff, so I can just delete it really quick.
Right.
For instance, I didn't read most of this.
What is this?
Yeah, I think I pretty much... Oh, I also read Arguments Why Meta Theory Physical Theory.
Oh, what were those?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, those weren't on here.
Yeah, sorry, I forgot that in the middle of the speech.
Meta theory first, sure.
Alright, you ready?
Yeah.
Meta theory precludes theory because A, it frames our evaluation of theory since it indicts the theory debate is skewed. B, abusive use of theory the worst form.
Wait, sorry, slow down. Eval of theory is skewed. Next one.
Yeah. So frames the evaluation of theory since it indicts that theory debate is skewed, so it's indicting theory. The B point is abusive uses of theory are the worst form of abuse since theory is a game over issue. C, abusive use of theory is worse because it corrupts the use of theory as a check on abuse and makes it obviously a strategic tool forcing debate away from substance.
Okay.
That was it.
Okay.
Also, there's jurisdiction arguments. Pretty good.
That's cool.
Okay, you said that.
I wish I would have gotten that letter wrapped at hip grind. I need to call my dad. We're supposed to be my dad.
What were the voters you read on the show?
I linked it to Fairness in Education, and I read Stratsky as an independent voter.
Okay.
Also, there's an independent reason to drop it.
Why?
They can kick my best responses to either and pick or choose depending on which layer I undercover, which is an independent reason to drop the neg. That functions prior to K in theory since they're delegitimizing critical arguments, which infinitely perpetuates oppression and unfair/uneducational practices.
I almost want this as like a salad, you know? I almost forced me to eat the bread. Oh, yeah.
What is multiple voting issues?
The ones that I talked about
So if I read like multiple pre-fiat arguments, right?
the ones that was in the violation are T and K, and the harms extrapolate why specifically these voting issues are bad. It's not like if you read turns and an NC, this links into the.
So turns in an NC would not link to the shell, right?
Yeah, no. The
Okay.
harms are very explicit on the issue of pre-fiat voting issues of T and K, and the specific reason why it's those two is because I cannot.
So just to clarify, T and an NC would not violate the shell.
Huh?
You said T and an NC would not
Well,
violate
it
the shell.
depends the implication of the NC, but
Alright.
specific to this round of K.
Okay, that's fine. All right, the order is your shell, and then moving on to topicality and perhaps the criticism. Like the case, then the criticism, perhaps.
Hey, goodbye.
All right.
Should I take you guys to
All right. Ready?
Hang on.
Oh, sorry. My bad. I'm sorry.
Yikes.
Sorry, let's do it again.
The order is meta theory, then topicality, and then the case. Meta theory, topicality, case, the critique. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Five, you good?
You're reading anything new?
Yeah. All right. All right. You good, Five?
I was born ready for this, Jonas.
All right. All right. Lol, Sean, I don't violate your shell at all. You said that NC in turns would not violate the 1AC. In cross-examination, you asked me which one comes first, and I said I don't take a stance on that issue. That's because the 1AC read a roll the ballot that was about structural depression, and then I read a K that linked her to roll the ballot, and then afterwards I also read a T shell, which made it appeal to why the F had to be topical, which means that the K was never a different roll the ballot. That's a why I did not read a roll the ballot about why ableism comes first, which means I meet your theory, shell. It's super clear. You said an NC in turns would not apply. The K was functionally a turn to the F, no new roll the ballot. T was like in conjunction with that NC. Doesn't violate. You said it would be specific on the implications to K, but don't do that work for him. And just in case you don't buy that, counter-interpretation, if the negative reads multiple voting issues, then they do not have to specify. You say that off of first up off of strategy, excuse my strategy, if I have to pinhole myself into one of them, because then afterwards the 1AR just gets a collapse for one of those things, which literally means that 4 or 3 minutes of the 1 and T is completely wasted because I split my time between T and K, which means that you literally could just ask me which one comes first, and if it's the K or theory, and then literally you could just spend 7 minutes of the 1AR and 2AR just turning that argument, for example, because the 1AR just collapses to one of those arguments, and then I don't get to go for it. No reason why only the 1AR gets to go for it. You say time skip, but then hard debate is good debate. If you actually have to spend your time answering the noise your arguments, that just means you have to become more efficient, which is probably better because I was fair. Just because I'm faster than you doesn't mean that you should be whining by reading a new 1AR show. But then also, you talk about the delegitimized critical arguments, but this argument is nonsensical. I read a critical argument because I believe it links to tap. That's why I defend it unconditionally, which means that I'm not even doing that, which means defending it unconditionally probably solves your offense because I'm just questioning Topicality app and defending unconditionally, which means specifically in this case you made a specificity argument, but specifically in the case of this round, I'm doing it. Also, potential abuse should not be a better because there are infinite rounds there other than this one. For example, like you could say that like AFC and the 1 NC could just be 6 minutes of an NC and 30 seconds of offense, or you could say AFC and it could be a 30-second NC and just turns to the AC for the entire speech, which means that there is different variations in terms of potential abuse should not be a better specific to the round. Makes the most sense, but also you say the 200 can collapse, but that's non-unique. You can collapse. No reason why only the collapse matters than the voter section. You made an argument about Travis Fife as an independent voter, but that argument is nonsensical. Makes an appeal to how fairness. It makes an appeal to fairness, which means that it relies on the same claim, but also even if Travis Fife is skewed, it's non-unique events, but also fairness should probably fairness should probably outweigh fairness. That's fine. So they're both voters. So that means that I probably meet your shell because the K was a turn. I didn't read a different roll of the ballot. You asked me in CX which one comes first, but I don't take a stance because the AF made a roll of the ballot argument and I made a T argument, which means that I should be able to extend turns and make reasons why your roll of the ballot comes first, or I should be able to extend T and make reasons why Topicality outweighs the AF. I very clearly don't violate. Same thing with an AC and an NC with turns. I could just say, make reasons why I could concede that the AF framework is true if you argue for it in the 1AR and go for turns in the 2NR, or B, I could continue to argue why the NC is true and then go for why the reasons why I went on the NC in the 2NR. It's the same thing. Like, I didn't read a different roll of the ballot. Like, I definitely make this shell. But then, onto Topicality. You make no reasons why the critique outweighs education. You don't even do the weighing that you say is so important in the 1AR, which means prefer my weighing here now, and I'd be very, very leaning on 2AR weighing, especially when you're reading the shell about why it's important. You don't even say which one comes first in the last speech, which means that the 2AR collapse on this issue, especially when I just spend time answering your shell, it's probably going to be disadvantageous, which means that it said that Topicality theory always theory always education, because actually that's fine. Just again the interpretation that the medical refers to the treatment of illnesses and injuries, extended violation that transgender treatments are not related to illness or injuries. That's the O'Connell evidence in the standard. The first one was common use because taking nervous control common use is every person has access to access. Then you could also extend limits that you're interpreting limits by permitting any consultation with a physician or anything involving medicine. You could also extend the fairness to the voter because made its competitive activity. Also, your shell relied on the idea that fairness was the voter in the first place, but also you can extend drop the variance, drop the argument. It's equivalent to severance allows the 1AR should extend that competing interpretation because reasoning makes no sense on Topicality. That's specific to T, which means it always comes first. Also, extending RBIs with one T is already after meaning that the past opposite media should automatically win. Like to clarify, make no reasons why the K comes before T or theory. Like if the AF was not topical in the first place, you have no jurisdiction to vote on that argument because the round was entirely skewed. Otherwise, this would incentivize the AF to read 6 minutes of theory spikes in the 1AC and then never actually answer the 1AC strategy. I can read how many theory shells I want and you just extend them all and go for them in the 2AR. If we have the same amount of speaking time, whoever's better at a tech theory debate is always going to be able to win. I mean, look at Ram Prasad. Then, also, in specific to the affirmative, you can definitely see that there's going to be there's context in terms of the Topicality shell. Go to his theory always meta T arguments. Your first argument is that the evaluation of theory is skewed, but that doesn't make any sense. First of all, cross-apply the hard debate is good debate argument that you could have covered all these arguments. For example, in a policy debate, they read 4 or 5 different often Topicality. You should be able to do with it. Also, being able to cover it faster means that increase your education. You can say that education of the voter because debate is a competitive activity specific to education. This is not critical education, specific to the education of this, but also if your argument about the evaluation of it is skewed, you can cross-apply that argument to why T outweighs the K because that would mean that the evaluation of the round is skewed because if you were untopical, then I don't know whether my K links, for example, you could just go for a no no link, and a reason why the permutation solves best, and then if the permutation solves best because it's unconditional, which means that not only that would evaluate, that would skew the round, because if the app is not topical, then maybe like for example, you don't have to defend autonomy, and then the K definitely doesn't link, which means that that definitely means that T of self-compatibility. Then your B argument is that abusive uses of theory are net bad, but no, that isn't true. No, that isn't true. That you say abusive use begs the question what is an abusive use? My only negative burden, the topicality, your burden is to be topical, especially to the point where you're conceding 100% strength of link on the topicality shell means that you are being abusive, which means that this is not a frivolous use or an abusive use of topicality, but rather one in which it doesn't matter. But also your third argument is that it forces me away. It forces you away from substance, but no, it doesn't, because you have to cover different arguments, and that means that you have to prove yourself to be topical, but that's not a shift away from substance. It forces you back from substance. If you get to be able to collapse to one issue, then you should send something. For example, if I said that T comes first in cross-examination, then you would only go for T, which means that we wouldn't get any substantive education in the first place, which means that you forcing yourself to cover the entire debate means that topicality and the app is always weighing it. But also, you already made weighing in the last speech, and I had made weighing in the first speech. So, okay, this is how the round breaks down. There's no reason. You just extend the app and extend why app framing matters. That's assuming that the app comes before a key. There is no weighing of that done in the 2NR, nor is there an extension of a card that could possibly do that. Don't let him say the role of the ballot is to be something. He didn't extend a role of the ballot. And second of all, fairness is obviously a role of the ballot claim about what is important about debate. It's a framework argument, which means that if he's not denying the fact that fairness is important and that frames your ballot, which means that it's very simple. I meet your shell, the counter term's better, and I win on T.
Okay. Your three first argument is that the round is totally skewed, right?
Huh?
Your T first argument is that the round is totally skewed, so there's no ability to engage in the K, correct?
No, I was making an argument about how if your argument's true, then that would mean that the round is skewed because of if you were on top of it.
Say T is first argument. That's what you labeled it as.
Yes.
Okay, cool. So this potential abuse voter goes away, right?
Potential abuse?
You weighed in the 2N, so potential abuse goes away, correct?
Potential abuse should not be as important as structural abuse. Not that potential abuse is irrelevant. It's a weighing argument.
The order is going to go quick on AC, new off. New off, like the one. Jesus. I saw the eyes. I do that every time. I don't screw up. That'd be a ballsy.
I told you.
That'd be a ballsy move, though, right? Alright. Here, let me just pull up my AC.
Can you repeat the order?
You don't remember your back.
So it's case, and then your meditation?
Yeah.
Just walk out with you guys.
Alright, case meta theory.
Still.
Okay, let's do it.
Cool.
Wait, can you tell me where you are in the case? Because it's kind of a long...
Of course, I gotcha, don't worry about it. The starting point on the case is just, top and then one extension of something. It's literally going to be 2 seconds.
Okay.
Just quick extensions. Right. Okay. But an overview of the debate before all that. Is everyone ready? Okay. Yeah, I'm starting our case. All right.
If theory is muddly, you should just vote on the K because there's 1% strength of link on the K because he didn't touch the last speech. Strength of link control sides of impact by muddled theory debate. That means it's very easy for you to vote on the K. This isn't a new argument because it was contingent on the arguments he makes in the 2N. So, extend community education, challenge gender repression, then extend Carol acts the hormone treatment, self-gender repression, suicidal tendencies. Only one with offense for the K debate. Now let's go to the meta theory debate first. Extend the interpretation of the negative multiple voting issue, the one and then must wait between them, the one and C or explicitly delay. Which comes first in CX case violation? He didn't specify which comes first in CX serious. Now, on to his argument very quickly first. His argument is. Where's my his argument is that the 1AC rolled about was red, but you knew there was an independent pre-fiat link that didn't just link into it independently because you said you didn't take a stance on which one came first. This implicitly concedes that you know specifically that you could have taken a stance which comes first in CX, but you didn't take a stance which comes first. Second, when I told you in CX that its turns are in NC, when I said NC, clearly it was not specific to this round turns, it was post-fiat turns, so it's not specifically turns into a roll about, and also it would definitely be different because turns into a roll about are a pre-fiat voting issue. The Hans specifically clarified this. Even if you textually meet the interp, you're definitely not meeting the spirit of it. The spirit of the interp comes before text the interp, because text the interp was PSI needs. There's definitely risk of abuse and definitely clear abuse on theories. So now extend standard that their argument functions a priori, then extend the independent reason to drop them that functions prior to K or theory since they're delegitimizing critical arguments which infinitely perpetuate oppression, unfair practices, and uneducational practices. Game over right there. I said he comes before K and T. He did no weighing in the last speech between this independent reason to drop him and the T debate. Vote right there. So easy. Literally there. Now, it also extends strategies. To theory because I came up with a reasonable understanding of how to make an impact argument. Thanks then, meta theory comes first because the B point. Abusive use of theory, the worst form of theory abuse because theory is a game over issue. As an overview of the argument T makes on the second argument, he has no offensive reason why T comes before meta theory, but he just puts defensive arguments why meta theory comes prior, why meta theory doesn't come prior to T. So if I have a risk of a reason why meta theory comes prior to T, that's the only way that you can evaluate which of those layers comes first. Meta theory definitely comes before T because it's the only argument that's the B point on why meta theory comes first, that the app must be topical. This is just a reaffirmation of topicality, but there's no reason why I'm not specifically a prior question. My ability to engage as to whether or not I am topical is first. My ability to engage in the T debate, which if I'm winning the harm under meta theory, I have no ability to engage in the T debate, so you cannot rely on the assumption that the app is untopical because I couldn't engage in that debate. Now, on the line by line, first he says that pinholes the NC because it splits time, but this doesn't make any sense. This creates a false dichotomy that either he weighs and I respond to only one layer, or he doesn't weigh and my impacts are triggered. Just don't read K and T unless you already know that you're going to read T in the first place. So only read one of those impacts, or read T as an impact turn to K. You can still read multiple voting issues without specifically delineating which one comes first by linking them both under the role of the ballot, so it does not pinhole the NC and split your time allocation. This second argument is that it's more effective, i.e. that it's better to have a hard debate, but this doesn't make any sense because one, theory and meta theory are indicting a harder debate, i.e. a more strategic debate, one of which is unfair. Even if you created a harder debate, that just means it is not a good thing. This would also impact turn the theory argument he read in the last speech because I'm creating a harder debate by being untopical. So, very easy for you to vote here as well. If I'm making a harder debate by being untopical, that is a good thing under this term. That's the second argument he made. But vote the independent reason to drop him, also strength link on K debate.
Good round.
Can I see the original show you read?
Yes.
I'm gonna need it too. Could you actually just email it to me?
Yeah, sure.
Did you get anything? I couldn't wait to see one.
Travis Fife, 94, UCLA.edu.
You want to get your social security number.
The last button. Now what?
I don't know. If you want to see RT, that's what we got last time.
Say that?
That's what I had to do for the last video.
What?
That's what I had to do for the last video.
Mine, it's like brown, it's like tan and checkered.
The camera's probably has a tag on it. I hate these.
Steel, do you know which,
No. At least I didn't.
brother?
I think I'm driving you.
So,
Press send, right?
You press send, right?
Let me double check.
I'm pretty sure I did. I'm almost positive I did. But also, I kind of closed it before it actually went through. Yeah, your message has been sent.
Okay.
Okay. Hey Jonas, can you delete all my stuff off your computer?
Yo, close the door.
I got you, girl.
Thanks, bro.
Each code. Shania, have you considered changing your email to the big arrow stuff? At UCLA.edu?
Stop. That's still my name.
If I ask Siri to call the big arrow stuff, guess who's going to be able to show it?
What do you need my phone?
Call the big arrow stop.
No, I'm saying that. No, he flashed it.
Oh yeah.
Sending a message. Thanks, Mario.
You also download the app. think 2 errors just finished.
Huh?
2 errors just finished.
You did that?
Fuck does that?
Felix?
Huh?
Worried about.
No, I'm gonna like just, honestly, they're not even gonna look at it if they,
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
but I gotta go, so if I, just text me. And I'll text you why, okay?
Okay.
I'll text you my reason, Travis. Once I'm in.
What's your time?
Oh, yikes, I'll have Liz text you my reason.
You press confirm, right?
Yeah. I'm gonna leave you with the rest of this sandwich. Thanks. Thanks, buddy. Bye.
Come on, Shania. Alright, can you get him?
Can you do? Alright. We haven't submitted yours, I see on that.
Let me find
Alrighty, boys.
The decision's in.
Oh, okay. So good debate, guys. Congrats to both of you on semifinals. It's a 3-0 decision for the affirmative from Strake. I think the debate round's pretty simple. So Jonas, there are 2 framing issues I have to resolve before I get into the nitty gritty on the 1AR off. The first is the I meet argument. Your I meet says that you don't take a stance. He sets up a roll of the ballot. You just read T and say that's also important. This one, I think, misunderstands what the NC did exactly. I think his explanation in the 2AR is correct, that you obviously did violate because the 1AC sets up a roll of the ballot which says, we care about material conditions, we want to help oppressed people, transgendered individuals in particular. The negative stands up and reads an ableism framework. In cross-X, you say the link is discourse, and then you also introduce the framework of topicality. His argument is that when he asks you which comes first, T or my roll of the ballot stuff, he wants you to take a stance on it. So I think there it's pretty simple. Your explanation of the NC and turn stuff is, I think it's pretty obvious how the K is distinct from turns. You basically explain it as a reps argument. So if I take the NC at face value, I think it's clear why that's probably not the case. Shania is like having trouble. Okay, so then I turn to this question of whether or not meta theory or topicality comes first. I also agree with the 2AR's characterization that the extension of the B point, that
you can see the sort of like internal warrant, I guess, of that when you read theory that skews, or that you read like abusive theory that skews his ability to engage with it in the 1AR. So I should not punish him and evaluate the debate as if he had actually violated the T interpretation. It does seem like your responses are new, and it also seems like this argument in particular takes out a lot of the voter analysis that you extend on the topicality argument, which is supposed to be like jurisdiction and stuff like that, but you kind of let him get away with a lot in terms of meta theory. I think the better framing issue in the NR is like, look, even if meta theory comes first, when you concede 100% strength of link determines strength of impact. Even if you win that there's a marginal skew in terms of even if you win that there's a marginal skew in terms of your ability, even if he wins there's a marginal meta-theoretical issue, you could still win topicality there, which I think... shit. Sorry, I'm getting like so many texts at once. So yeah, I think that with that being said, like a better framing issue in the 2-hour could have done a lot for you. And then I don't think I just can't see how the NR would concede this argument. Like it's very clearly articulated.
Wait, what argument?
The argument about how you like delegitimize K-debate because you treat it as just like another layer of the flow. What?
But I answered that.
I do not have a particularly good answer. And you concede it is an independent voter. Your arguments on it are like, hard debate is good debate. It's probably better. The K link turns the F. You're not even doing this. Like those types of defensive responses, A, are sort of reliant on the I meet that you are just like, that the K is just this link turned to the affirmative. And B, I don't think responds to the actual warrant of Sean's argument, which seems to be more along the lines of, if those representations in the critique are that important to you, muddling and obscuring the issue through topicality and then basically putting them in the position of, like, you ought to accept this, or putting him in the position of, like, now you have to cover both of these and I'm not going to speak to which one comes first. That articulation in the 1AR and the 2AR seems to answer it back. So I do not have a direct explanation of how you have, like, I do not have a direct answer to the argument. It seems like you just lump it in together with a lot of the other responses you're making.
Had I said that, do you think a compelling answer would have been that I read T as a question of whether or not the AF meets their burden to be topical, and then it would be nonsensical for me to just read 7 minutes of T, so I still have to read arguments to have an offensive layer on substance.
Yeah, but there's no reason why that has to be a K. And then even, perhaps more importantly, there's no reason why you... Like the question is not, can you read a critique with topicality? The question is, can you, should you have to specify? If your argument is that specifying is pigeonholes you, then it gets into the issue that you guys are talking about as to whether, his response is like, oh, well, you can do all these other things, you should just not read this strategy, whatever. So I just think that, the concession of this argument lets him get away with so much on theory that, or lets him get away with so much and use this as such a huge implication that it's just very difficult to pull the trigger.
What is it even linked to?
What?
The delegitimizes the K argument.
He justifies that given the framing in the 1AC, it's an independent voter.
What framing?
Huh?
What framing in the 1AC?
His argument is that you have offered a critique of representation. The performative contradiction is an independent voter because you've academically delegitimized the argument that you purport to defend.
Okay.
So, yeah, I mean, I think that the issue for me is there's so much more you can do with a concession of a topicality argument.
If I'd made strength of link weighing, do you think you would have voted negative?
I mean, it depends how you do it, but I think that is the framing issue that has to be in the NR before you even get to the line by line of the theory debate. You have conceded that the app is not topical. Even if time skew and you were skewed a little bit, are you kidding me, dude? No responses? 0? That is the NR story of the comparison between the two shells that is non-existent. And so the ultimate thing at the end of the day is that I think that you are winning defensive arguments, and probably a reason why strategically you should not have to specify. But the problem is translating those arguments into is addressing the sort of over-exaggerated claims that this shell makes, where it's like, this is independent voter, strat skew is independent voter, this comes first, which makes topicality irrelevant. Like, those things are obviously not the case. But without an NR that can like call bullshit on it, it makes for a difficult but also like reasonably compelling 2AR.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, man.
Okay.
I'm not the same as Travis on the issue. I read everything and it's pretty quick on the issue. I thought that you do live in their way quite a bit. I don't think there's a good response to the argument. Travis is right. It's a good 2 sentences of the standards debate on strat skew for him and the 1AR, and there's not a really good response that I have.
What about the non-unique on strat skew?
One more of the specific argument that you made.
The like conceded like strat skew is not unique because if I have to specify, then it pinholes me into one strategy, so I can't. I guess it wasn't conceded, but I thought.
I don't think that's a super compelling argument on the issue.
His argument was the same warrant, right? So I don't understand why the non-unique doesn't make sense.
Because the way the LD actually functions, right? I think that the way in which it functions, right, there is a greater amount of strat skew that occurs for Sean than it would be for you, right? I think that you are able to control the sort of instances of when this occurs and sort of play it as to how you want to, right? This is what Sean is doing. He's like, you should go for the person who's like more on front of the issue, not the person who's going to be like you that's cheaper, right? And I think that sort of head starts the issue of the fact that there's going to be obviously much more strat skew than you being able to decide what happens in the instance of whether you go for K or for T, right? Because I think that.
But I don't understand why he can go for K or T doesn't answer that.
I'm sorry, what's your question?
Right, like I said he can go for K or T, I can go for K or T, right? He can
the problem is this. Let me sort of explain. The problem is, so let's say that, that you don't specify, he just stands up in the 1AR, instead of reading meta theory, he goes for T and goes for the app arguments, right? But the T arguments is just an ID competition that grants him access to the app, and then he's able to extend the app that you spent very little time on, right? But then the next speech, that means he probably severely undercovered the K debate, and since T comes first, but T is a wash, we go to the K debate versus the app, and you're clearly ahead on the K debate, right? That's how the debate would have happened. That's how it happens in almost every instance of LD when this sort of occurs, right? So I think there's a greater amount of strat skew versus when you get to pick.
But I don't hear that weighing argument in the 2AR at all. I think the argument that you just made was not in the 2AR.
I'm saying just in general, he says to pull the trigger based on sort of the strat skew that occurs. The strat skew argument that's in the speech doc is the arguments are functionally a priori because they are two completely independent links and how they function in the debate as an option to each other. Offense on 3 and interaction, offense on the K, so I can't originate the arguments that I make in the 1AR against both layers.
Well,
literally the first 2 lines.
I understand, but I said even if that's true, forcing you to specify which one comes first means that he just has to go for one of them. He doesn't have to go for both.
I don't think that's true as far as like how debate works, right? That's
but if he on theory he can say I get an RVI and then just collapse the theory.
And you read like a minute worth of reason why you can't get an RVI.
But he can just collapse if theory comes before the K. That's the argument. Also, he never made those arguments.
The arguments he's making are hedging towards what it means to be fair, right? Fairness precludes theory.
It's okay.
He has lots of reasons, right? The way that it's not fair. I think he's just right on the issue. It's not fair. I think the way that you set up things is probably a little bit abusive, and I think it's a perfectly okay strategy to read. But in the instance of when he wants you to specify, you should probably just pick one, right? And just have that debate with him and be willing to bet that you're better on that than he will be.
Right.
Does that make sense?
I mean, yeah.
I know it seems frustrating in the instance, but I think there's obviously more strat skew for the app, and it's more unfair for the app to have to respond to those different situations. I think that's what he's hedging at, coming out in the text, and he reads me for meta theory, and also the arguments he's making in the 2AR about why it's going to be more unfair.
Okay.